Hey y'all, Dipro here from Monday.com. Today I'm going to show you how to build your first workdoc app. We're going to use some example code that you can get from our public GitHub repositories. And I'm going to show you how to set it up. I'm going to show you how it works. And everything's going to be amazing. So let's go ahead and get started. So first off, for those of you who don't know what a workdoc is, a workdoc is a collaborative document inside of the Monday Work OS. And workdoc apps are extensions that live inside of the workdoc context. And I'm just going to show you what that can look like right here. By the way, if you want to know more about workdocs, I do have another video that you can check out. But yeah, so what we're going to be building today is a capitalizer. So what that means is it's a utility that capitalizes text when someone highlights it. So I'm going to highlight this text here. In this contextual toolbar, I'm going to click on the apps button and Dipro's capitalizer. If I click this, a little iframe is going to show up with my app running inside of it, and it'll say capitalize. And when I hit capitalize, boom, the app then uses our SDK to take the data that is highlighted, capitalize it, and then push it to the workdoc. All right, so now that you know what we're going to build, let's go ahead and build it. So I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to go to our Monday developer section. So if I go to developer.monday.com, you'll get all of the documentation that's available for the Monday Apps Framework. By the way, I'm doing this real time so you can see how fast it is. But yeah, you can see all of our documentation here. Let's go ahead and click on Doc Actions for workdocs and then click on the Quick Start Guide. All right, so this is all the steps that we're going to follow today, and you can follow along during this video, or you could just read this afterwards. We're going to do a couple of different things. I'm going to go ahead and start by downloading the example code. And so I'm going to copy this command. You will need git to do this. And then I have a terminal window right here inside of this workdocs demo folder. So I'm just going to run this. And what this will do is install, or download rather, all of the welcome apps that we have, which means all of our example code. And once we have that, I'm going to change my directory to the workdocs sample inside of it. So we're going to do welcome apps/apps/ right here, quick start workdocs. And I'm going to hit enter. And now I'm in the working directory for the workdocs sample code. And now I'm going to install the dependencies. So you will need npm and node for this. I'm just going to run npm install. And this is going to start installing all the dependencies. This can take like 2 minutes. And so while this is happening, I'm going to go back to my browser and I'm going to set up my app in the Monday UI. All right, so let's go back to my Monday demo account. I'm going to click on my avatar and hit developers. This will open up the developer section. And you'll see a list of all of your apps. If you just opened your Monday account, then you won't see any apps right here. And then just click create an app. And when you click this, it will create a new app for you. And the way that the hierarchy works is an app is a collection of extensions, a collection of what we call features. And each feature lives inside of a context, right? So in this case, a doc context. So I'm going to add a feature right after this. So right here, I can hit create feature, and I'm going to create a new doc. And let's hit go. And you can use this quick start workdocs to just set up the configuration really fast. But I'm actually going to start from scratch because I want to explain to you what the things we do are. Okay, so now that I've started from scratch, you can see that I have some configuration. I'm going to change the name of my feature because this is what's going to show up in the doc when someone clicks on that menu. And I'm going to call this I'm going to call this capitalizer number 2 because I already have number 1. And you can add a description and so on. I'm going to ignore all of that. And I'm going to make sure that it is supported in the contextual toolbar, which means it'll show up when someone highlights text. And I'm going to hit save feature, and boom, now I have an app and I have it connected to the apps framework. One last step, just a small thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the name to workdocs demo. And I'm going to hit save. And I'm also going to change the app icon so that I have just like a nice icon that shows up. And I'm going to use this like orange document icon. I'm going to crop it, and then let's make sure it looks good. Okay, it has this like background of the app color, so I'm just going to change this to white. You don't have to do all of this, but I think it just makes the app feel a little bit more refined. All right, so now that I've set all of this up, I do have this feature, but I will need to connect this feature to an app, or rather to some code that will render. As you noticed before, there's an iframe or a modal that pops up, and that is an iframe, and you can embed whatever you want in it. You'll embed your app, and that needs to connect to something. And so let's go ahead and start our development server on our local machine and connect it to the apps framework. All right, so I'm going to go back to my terminal. I can see that the installation is done. I'm going to just clear off all these messages, and I'm going to run. What should I do first? Okay, I'm going to run code. And so I'm going to open the code, okay? And while this happens, I'm also going to run npm run start. So if I run npm run start, what this is going to do is it's going to do two things in parallel. One, it's going to start up the development server, which means it's going to compile the code, and it's going to push it to a port on our local host. And it's also going to open an ngrok tunnel. And so a tunnel takes data that is served on a port, and it connects it to a public URL. And this is a service that you'll need to sign up for. It takes 5 seconds, and there are instructions in the documentation on how to do that, but you will need to do that. So in the quick start guide, there's a section install ngrok. Again, takes 5 minutes. Go ahead and do that. Ngrok is super useful. And then once you do that and you have your ngrok tunnel running, just go to localhost 4040. And you'll see the ngrok inspector. And here you'll see the tunnel URLs that you have been given. I'm going to copy the HTTPS one, right? Because we always want to use HTTPS. And I'm going to go back to my app, and I'm going to add this as a new build. Cancel. Okay, I'm going to add this as a new build. So right there. And I don't need to add any kind of endpoint or anything, or sorry, subdirectory. I'll just add the full URL and hit create build. And what this will do is tell Monday, okay, every time you open up a modal, please render whatever is served from this URL. And so now let's go back to our document. I'm just gonna go back to the main workspace, and this document will open up already. And let's type some text. This is my text. And if I highlight it again, I'm gonna get this contextual menu. And if I click on the puzzle icon, I'll see capitalizer 2. And when I click on this, again, an iframe is going to show up, and this is being served from my local machine. And so if I edit it, it'll also update the app accordingly. And when I hit capitalize, this is going to do the same thing. It's going to capitalize the text. And so all in all, in just a few minutes, I've gone ahead and set up a very simple app using the sample code to capitalize some text. Now, step 2 is understanding what is this app doing. And for that, let's go back to the code, and I'll walk you through the different things that's happening here. So in here, I've already opened up the code in VS Code. And if you look at the directory structure, it's very similar to most React projects. Node modules is where the dependencies live. Public is where all the icons live. And then SRC is where the main, the good stuff is. And inside it, there's a number of different files. App.js is where most of the like actual useful logic is. And instead of seeing everything, I'm actually going to fold all the code, and we can inspect it bit by bit. Okay, so inside of this app function, we have basically two parts. One part is the return, which is what is rendered. And all that is rendered is a div that contains a button. And this button is from our React components, which I'll go through in a little bit. But let's start by just seeing what this does. Okay, so it's a button, and when you click it, it will run the capitalized text function, right? So that's right here. Let's just fold this up again, and let's open up capitalized text and see what it does. So already I can see that it's starting by doing a lot of different things. Okay, and I'll walk you through what it does bit by bit. So on line 17, it runs this monday.execute function. Monday.execute or monday.anything are methods that are available through the JavaScript SDK that we provide. And there's a lot of different functions you can use to make the user experience even better for your end users. And it also has some helper methods to just make your life easier. This execute method, value created for user, it sends an event to our backend, to the Monday backend, just saying that, hey, the user did something useful. And if you are a marketplace developer, you can then see that information and try and use it to understand what is the conversion rate of your apps, how many people are actually getting value after they install your app. So that's right there. And then after that, in line 20 and 21, we are grabbing and manipulating this data called context, app context. What is app context? It is basically a JSON that contains a lot of different information about where your app is running. End of the day, when you open up your app doesn't know what it's connected to, right? It's just running in an iframe. And so the context will tell it, okay, you're running inside of a workdoc. This is the ID of the workdoc. It'll also tell you what's called focused blocks, right? Which is all of the blocks or the lines in the workdoc that are connected and highlighted at a given moment. And so when I highlight this one line and I look for the context, it'll be the block number, whatever this number is. And that'll be the focused block. If I highlight 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different lines, then the focused blocks will be these 5 lines or these 5 blocks. So the context is really, really useful. And this focused blocks field is actually really useful because it tells our app what it needs to manipulate and what it needs to capitalize. Okay, so now that I have this context, I'm then gonna loop through all the focused blocks. And what I do here is I start by initiating a new like delta object. Delta is essentially the format that we use for updating block content, updating and also representing block content. It's a standard that's used by a couple of different people. So I just instantiate a new object here. And then after that, I am essentially looping through the data inside of this content, and I am just doing string manipulation, right? So right here, I am just running to uppercase, and then I have some checks for if it's null, etc. Okay, so I'm looping through, creating a new array that just has all the capitalized versions of the original focus blocks. And then once I do that, I am going to, where is it? Right here. Once I do that, I am going to run this next execute method called update doc block, which will push that content to the block that we have highlighted. And so what this does is it takes all that capitalized information and pushes it to where we wanted it to be. Cool. So once it does all of that, after it's looped through everything, it then runs another command called Monday execute close doc modal. And this closes the modal once the action is complete. And let's just see that in action again, because I know I went through it just a few minutes ago. So here, I'm going to highlight some text. I'm going to write some text first. This is text. This is line 2. This is line 3. And then when I highlight this, and then I run the action, what it's going to do is it's first going to get this doc and these blocks as the context. It's going to get 3 focused blocks. It's then going to loop through those blocks and it's going to capitalize each one. And of course, this will happen so fast that we won't be able to tell on the video. But I'm just going to show you that this is how it works. And there we go. It's updated. All right. A couple more things I want to flag here. Firstly, the monday.execute methods are really, really useful. I recommend you lean on the SDK because it gives you a lot of helper functionality to make your life as a developer easier. You'll notice that all I did was use the SDK to update these doc blocks. And it means that I didn't have to authenticate against an API. I didn't have to make any requests out to like a third-party URL or anything like that. I can just run everything from the client side and not worry about it. The other thing is I mentioned earlier we have these React components, and I specifically have this button component. This is all imported on line 8 from this package called Monday UI React Core. And it's the package that we use for our React components. And if you go to style.monday.com, which if I click this, it'll open up. You'll see a list of all the components that we have available. And actually, there's a lot of really useful ones. So the button is the one that I used today, and this is what it looks like. But there's a lot of other components that you can play around with and you can incorporate in your app. And this is a really easy way to make your app look and feel like Monday without styling everything yourself. So it'll save you a lot of time. So go ahead and check this out. And that's pretty much it. We've gone through how to set up the app. We've gone through how to use context, how to use the SDK to update the doc information. And now you're an expert at setting up doc apps. And now you can build something yourself. Before I go, I want to give you a heads up for a few other things. First off, go to community.monday.com and sign up for our developer community. This is where you can get a lot of help if you run into any problems as you're building out your app. So just go to community.monday.com and you'll see a sign up button. Just go ahead and sign up and then post and interact with other people there. The other thing that I want to flag is the Welcome Apps repo itself. So if you go to github.com and you search for monday.com, it's monday.com, you'll see all of our open source repositories, and one of them is called Welcome Apps, and this is where all of the apps live. And so I'd recommend going in here and checking out the variety of example apps that we have available. We do have a quick start for workdocs, which we showed today, but we also have a lot of other apps, from integrations to board views to word clouds and reporting tools that you can use as a jumping off point for your own integrations and apps. So go ahead and check those out. Cool. And without further ado, thank you so much for joining me today, and have a good rest of your day. Bye, y'all.